everyone. Today I want to share this sketchbook with you. It's my Patterns Sketchbook, and whenever I have an idea for a pattern, I try to keep them all or illustrate them all in one place so that they're not scattered across many other sketchbooks. I think I have about 8 sketchbooks on the go right now, maybe even more, but they're all different, for different purposes. I keep a sketchbook, as you know, for whole swatches and favorite swatches, and then I have one which is sort of anything and everything. Then there's a botanical one which I haven't revisited in a while. There is one for just experimenting. It's a paper that's not really designed for watercolor, but I like to experiment with acrylics in there. It's a small sketchbook. Sometimes I like a bigger sketchbook and then compressing things into a smaller one. So there is really a lot of things that I'm working on, and I realized I haven't had a sketchbook flip through in a long time, and the reason is because I'm not just working in one. So I started the sketchbook somewhere around 2019. It was definitely before the pandemic, and then I worked through it fairly quickly, and then I came to a standpoint where I didn't feel inspired for any patterns. I took a different turn into in my art style, and sort of that was just there. And very recently I have rediscovered it again. So I think it's been, in terms of the break, possibly a good year and a half, if not longer. And unfortunately I didn't date it when I started it, but I did start dating it recently so that I can actually see how my art changes. And I think the purpose of this little flip, I'm about halfway into this sketchbook, so I'll basically do the flip for the half, and then whenever it's finished I'll do probably either second half or everything together again. But the point of this video is not only to show you how I get inspired by a pattern and how I use them, but also the fact that if you start a sketchbook a while ago and take a break and then come back to it, you actually will realize how much your art has changed and possibly improved, and what turn it took. So all of these things are quite interesting, and you'll see as the beginning of the sketchbook is quite different to how it will be moving into a couple of days ago, basically. Okay, so let's start with the beginning. So the beginning was actually, I didn't think of the sketchbook as patterns. I just started it. It's the caddy papers, and it doesn't have any information on here, but it's basically the handmade paper in India. Some art supplies don't work really well on this paper at all, so I kind of keep it. I'm not repurchasing it anymore because the paper is not sort of fun for the current style that I'm working in. I like mixed media, I like mixing pencils in with other mediums, and that just does not work very well in this paper. But I am using what I have, and I am enjoying it. If you're working just purely in watercolor, you will enjoy it, but for mixed media I wouldn't really recommend it, especially if you have any fountain pen. That's just impossible on this paper, and pencils aren't great either. Okay, so I started it just with some sort of swatching, nothing particular in mind, and I think at which point did I think soon after. So this was just sort of, at that time I was buying some more of the Daniel Smith watercolors and just watching them here, and then just playing around with the granulating images. The patterns that you see, they actually happened later, so carried on until about here, and then the pattern started. And then I started going back and catching up and doodling all over the swatches. So the swatches and the doodles that you can see here, these were then kind of caught up with. So that's what I've done. And that's when I decided it's going to be a pattern book. Here I have some washi tape that I just really liked creating a kind of like a pattern with, playing with the thickness of the lines, the contrast. So you can see the color palette and the pattern is what really kind of started heading towards that direction where this sketchbook ended up. Then I started illustrating leaves as a pattern, and I became quite sort of interested with that, and I thought I will be looking at leaves and kind of deconstructing them into different shapes, and taking, for instance, a leaf shape, and it doesn't have to be exactly like that, but changing it slightly using different pens and different mediums, some of them water soluble, some of them waterproof, and seeing how different that would look. So that was a lot of fun, and I just carried on, and I think it's so much fun to be kind of fixated for a little while on the same subject matter and developing it into different shapes. And actually you'll see that a similar mindset I have been doing or having when doing the latest illustrations when we come to it. So here again, changing up the colors, changing up the shapes. So you can see here the shape is very similar, and some of them smaller, some of them elongated. Here I'm doing a bit rounder, and instead of straighter connecting lines, I am doing them a little bit wiggled, a little bit more sketchier, and seeing how that changes the look of the pattern. There I'm still going in with the leaves, so going back to the original sketch here, but now taking it into straight lines and creating kind of like vines of leaves, and again changing up the sizing of it, etc. So I think at this point I might have introduced, I'm thinking, is this watercolor, or I think maybe this is still watercolor, I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm doodling over it, creating more pattern. So let's see. And again, changing the color palettes, so going from pink and greens to, so here, for instance, there's no more doodling over it, and then the doodles start here again. So then I am changing the leaves to very fine, so you can still see the resemblance, but how different the patterns change. To just see how you can push yourself, or push the pattern rather, and how much variety you can get. Oh, this is where I then introduced some of the Tim Holtz Distress Oxides and used them as watercolor. So what I did is I took the ink pads and some like acetate paper and stamped some of the ink onto the acetate paper, and it's like a clear plasticky type of thing, and then I added some water and with a brush just used it like watercolor. And I really like that because it has this lovely oxidized look to it. It's a little bit kind of like chalky, but really beautiful how it changes the color without doing much to it. And then again going with doodles over it. I think this is just a white jelly pen. Then here I again stayed within the same pattern but changed up the color, and here it kind of went a little bit off course and it became something abstract. So I wanted to take patterns into abstract art, and you can see there is some of the leaves here, but then it's no longer a pattern, it's more of an illustration with some mixed media patterns that I'm creating here. And although I absolutely love some of these areas, if you have like a viewfinder, you can just place it and find areas that you like, and you want to, say for example, create a bigger piece, just focus on that area. So take away whatever you don't like. For instance, for me personally, I think this flower is a little bit overworked, so if I cover this side of the page speaks a lot more to me. I like the leaves, and I like the shapes and the patterns and everything on here. So that was slightly different, but I felt it was still okay to experiment with that, because you don't know what you will come up with. Sometimes, you know, you can hate it, sometimes you can love it. So then I thought, okay, I will go back to that sort of repetitive pattern and just explore this time more the floral botanical side of things. And I started illustrating these kind of like water lilies that I think I was inspired by from a wallpaper I saw somewhere. And then I went into like Art Deco style here, and still keeping within the yellow colors and just trying different things. Some gel pens, some, I think this might have been watercolor. Then I was curious to go back to abstract art, and this time I used the jelly plates, I think it's called. So the like, you know, the jelly ones. I need to actually find where mine have gone. I got some really neat small ones, like the size of a mobile phone, and basically it's good for small sketchbooks like this, where you can apply your mixed media, whether it's acrylic paint or, you know, whatever other things you can think of, and just stamping them across each other. I have also created some lovely mark making here with some catalyst tools. I really like this page. This is way too overworked for me, but I liked experimenting and then kind of, you know, calming it down on this page. So even if you don't like something, try to create a version of it that you like. So highlight things in your mind that you don't want, so that you can just kind of avoid them. And, you know, for instance, again, if I cover this side, you can see with a bit of yellow popping through. I actually really like it because the pink and the yellow have a good kind of harmonious look to them. And so without yellow, something is missing. So I knew I wanted a bit of it. So what I've done here is I focused on the pink and the white, actually adding more white. So you can see there's the paper white, and there is also the acrylic white, and lifting it, making it more airy and light, and still adding a bit of that yellow here and there, but quite lightly. So carried on with that sort of idea, now adding the doodles from before, like the leaves and the botanical doodles on top. And again, I actually really like this one. So it's very mild. The doodles are not in your face, and I've done them with like an ivory acrylic pen so that you can see them lightly with a bit of gold detail. So these are the fennel inspired doodles. Then I went back into yellow, and this time I was adding kind of a lot of vibrant color to it. This is so not me. It's just way too much happening here. But I was playing with doodles, I was playing with some abstract mark making, and also, as you can see here, actually this is something I want to play more with, but change up the color palette because it's not working at all for me. But I used here my stencils, and actually I haven't been showing them or sharing them on my channel that much since releasing them at all. So I think I should maybe show you how I like using them in a color palette that sort of is more my style. But what's great about them is you can create a lovely texture. So because it's acrylic and it's thickly laid, the texture is lovely. And yeah, you can play with them. So over it I doodled some more botanical art, and you can create them for patterns, for texture, and so on. I've got 4, and they are inspired by botanical art actually. So let me just pull them out for you. Here are the ones that I used. So they come white and clean when you order them, but these are mine, and I love them because they're small. When I was creating them, I was inspired by the Moroccan tiles, and so this is inspired by iris, and this is what it looks like when you use them. Tulip stencil, this is what it looks like. So the iris and tulip, and then we have chrysanthemum, so inspired by the lovely leaves, and here is what it looks like. And water lily. I believe these are actually on sale right now, so do have a look on my Etsy shop, Alyona Creates. So what you can do is you can, you know, stencil the entire pattern, or you can just stencil areas of it and sort of create your own patterns. For example, if you just do this this sort of image here, and you go like this, you know, you can create lovely patterns. There's so much you can do with it. I'll try to create sort of more tutorials so you get more ideas. They're great for abstract art. Okay, here between this and this there has been that 1.5 year gap thereabouts, and I have been taking a online course, and was inspired by the patterns that module had. And although it's not really my thing, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back to this patterns book and start using it again, because patterns is actually what I am working with right now. I'm just trying to see where it's gone so I could show you. Yeah, so these are the kind of pieces I have been working on, and there's another one as well. So patterns is something that I'm currently inspired by, and I want to use more of like abstract patterns. And so I thought I'll just do this kind of barcode inspired pattern and see where it takes me. Even though I knew it's not really me, I thought it would be a good kind of, you know, starting point again. And it really was, because then I moved on to something that I do like, and these are the kind of the shapes that I like. So I tried to explore what would happen if I just do the same shape in different ways, so like I did in the beginning of the book. And then a couple of other shapes using other colors, which I'm not fond of. I do like the shapes here, but the color palette is not something I'm enjoying. But you know, I just thought, again, I'll just experiment. And then there was a particular pattern that I saw in the course, and I thought, not sure it's me, but I want to explore it and maybe make it feel like me. So that's what I've done. The pattern there was that sort of the idea of it, but not like this. So I thought I'll start creating more wonkier areas. I think the pattern that I saw was quite sort of straight, and I thought I want to see what it looks like when it's a bit more wonky, and that started a whole new thing. So I then went into this pattern, so making it larger and creating shadowing. Then I was actually swatching some pens out, and I thought, what a great idea to do it in this sketchbook, because I want to see how the fine liners look in this. So all the different fine line sizes, how they look in this pattern. And then this took me to the latest, which is why I wanted to film this video. So I thought, what would happen if I add some watercolor into these pockets, because they are just perfect for that. So I thought, okay, I'll mix up a color palette that I really enjoy, and I will be more conscious with the color palette, because in the past, as you saw, there were some color palettes that weren't really me. So I thought instead of just slapping any color or a color, I will be more considerate. And so I went for the colors that I really love. And hey presto. So I absolutely love this. I put a picture on Instagram, and I've been enjoying all the supplies that I've been buying recently, adding, and I'm kind of bringing it all together. So the supplies, the patterns, the reflection of the metallic colors, and all of that good stuff. And then I thought, well, what will happen if I kind of make it into an egg shape? Because I like oval shapes, I like the rounder shapes, and so I created this pattern, and then it kind of went into this where I thought, well, let me try to push it even further and kind of maybe make it more pointier. And at that point also I thought I will change up the rhythm of it, and it sort of started looking a little bit like feathers at this point. And yeah, and I want to still continue with that. I want to be adding different metallic paints to it, maybe doodles even, and just take it further. I wouldn't be surprised if I finished the rest of the sketchbook in this theme, but I'm enjoying it so much, and it's so kind of helpful to come back to the sketchbook and see where it sort of started for me, and where it has gone. So I can see a major kind of step up here in my art. It's more considerate, it's more thought through, and I think this is how you improve your art, by trying to find something you like and make it your own. So I hope you found it somewhat useful and inspiring. Let me know if you have a little sketchbook that you keep to a side somewhere that you just drop some ideas into there, and what ideas are those. So I think having a small sketchbook is always helpful because it's less overwhelming, and it's easier to fill the page and refer to it later. So because it's pattern, it doesn't need to be a finished art piece. It's just something that I can go back to and just see small area of it, what I like about it, what I like to take into my art. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.